What's up, y'all? It's your girl Chanel from Complex Simplicity. Happy Wednesday. Excuse me. Cold in my house. Had to turn up the heat. But anyway, it's been about a little over a week since I last did a vlog. I had like a whole 2019. Hope you had a great holiday season, as well as just some thoughts that I had as per usual. And today, I decided to do a vlog on the whole Surviving R. Kelly docuseries. I will also dig a little deeper than just that. I know it took everyone by storm, the world by storm, last week, and I know many people have been uber vocal on social media. And I watched all 6 of the docuseries, and I wanted to give myself time to process all the information. I also did further research, listened to other interviews that were pertaining to, or not pertaining, but I listened to other interviews where other people who I admire and respect shared their thoughts. I watched the Joe Budden podcast, and he was able to share his thoughts on things, as well as to speak to mental health, as well as to speak to just, from a male perspective. I think Iyanla was on Sway in the Morning, and Sway asked her what her thoughts and feelings were with regards to R. Kelly, and she even said, come to find out, that R. Kelly and his people had reached out to Iyanla and wanted to do a segment of Fix My Life, and she said, there's a certain preliminary test or questions that she asks. I guess it's her way of screening and vetting to see who out of all these celebrities are really going to go there, and who are in a place where they're ready for the to do the work, so to speak, for her style of life coaching. And she said he wasn't ready. She said he's sick, and that he is not even at that place where he has the capacity to even go there. And so, her and her team, where they opted out. They were like, no, we're not going to, have him on the show. And she was like, she's not about just putting celebrities on the show just for the sake of it and putting them out there and not even helping them in the end. So she shared some things in her interview with Sway that was definitely impactful and interesting. I also watched the interview, my mother had actually sent it to me, with R. Kelly's youngest brother. I believe his name is Casey. His youngest brother, who pretty much straight up and down revealed that it was their older sister who was sexually abusing them, and he kind of really descriptively spoke about it. And last but not least, I've always put it out there that I did a lot of research on Hollywood and the industry, and just how dark and evil it is. And I understand that, and that plays a big part with things as well. So for me, before I came on to do a vlog about the whole Surviving R. Kelly thing or docuseries, I wanted to give myself the time to do further research. You all know, I say it all the time, I have a background in the social work field, and I have worked with children, teenagers, parents who have been sexually abused. And so I've seen how that trauma, if it goes untreated, how it affects, the minds, the souls even of people in general, whether you're a child or you're an adult. My mom was sexually abused when she was a child, when she was, I would say, that preteen teenager stage or age. And so, she shared with me a few things about that experience. And so I've been around tons of people who have unfortunately been sexually abused, and especially in my professional life, I worked directly with a lot of people who have been sexually abused from the ages of 2 all the way up until in their 20s, so to speak. So I definitely have seen how that level of trauma can affect how you live your life. It could affect your mind, your self-esteem, your self-worth. It just affects a lot. And if you don't go through the treatments that are needed, intense therapy, and for some it could be other things that are needed, then you really, really can become sick. And I believe that R. Kelly is absolutely sick. And I'll be honest, I've been a fan of his music forever and a day. His music reminds me of my childhood in the sense of I was born in 1983, but I grew up, as far as going to school and all that kind of stuff, I grew up in the 90s. And I remember as young as elementary school grade level, my friends and I, you know, listened to his music. We knew the songs, you know. I think a friend of ours, it was like right around Christmas time. I must have been like the 3rd or 4th grade, and she made us cassette tapes of the hottest music that was out, and R. Kelly's 12-play album had just come out. And so you best believe that was part of the cassette tape, the whole 12-play album. And I remember being very young in elementary school, listening to this man's music, and I fell in love with the music, even though I knew it was like raunchy and like dirty, and I was way too young to be listening to it. I would sneak in my room and listen to it. I still liked his style of music, and I've been clear and transparent about, you know, I pretty much have every R. Kelly album that there is, maybe with the exception of one, and have actually gone to a few of his concerts. And I think about a year ago, I said, you know what, Chanel, it's just, I always heard, all of us heard back in the day, you know, the rumblings of, you know, him messing with little girls and things of that nature. And, you know, I think it's very easy for us, and Joe Budden said this the best way when I was watching the podcast the other night. It's so easy to get hypnotized by the music, y'all, which takes me back to my point of the industry and how the music industry, the entertainment industry, all this stuff, the movies we watch, it's deeper than what y'all think. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do believe that there is a hypnotic sense that comes with a lot of entertainment. A lot of it dumps us down. A lot of it desensitizes us with things that we shouldn't be desensitized to, so to speak. And I'm guilty of it. So, you know, I'm guilty of it. But a year ago, I made a point to say, you know what? Because I think more and more stories were coming out. And even after me doing my extensive research with the entertainment industry, when I say extensive research, like it's like forever ongoing. But I would say maybe for like the last 7 years, I've been really like doing my research on just the evils of the industry and how people sell out and sell their souls and all those kinds of things. And having a grasp of that, you know, and then linking it back to, oh, this is what was always said about R. Kelly. And, you know, everything is like cohesive. It all connects in some way, right? And so, yes, his music is very alluring and enjoyable, and, you know, he was always referred to as the king of R&B, you know what I'm saying? But sad to say, this man is sick, you know? He was molested, sexually abused by his sister. That could F with your head, for real. Like, I don't even, like, on a whole other level, that could mess with your head. Because one, I think, according to his brother, he was saying that he was being sexually abused, meaning his brother, when he was about 6, 7 years old. So R. Kelly was about 9, 10 years old, right? And so could you imagine, 10 years old, that's kind of like the puberty stage, right? For me, I was menstruating at 10 years old, right? So that's like the stage most of us, our bodies start changing, right? But you're still innocent. You're supposed to be innocent. You're still not supposed to know about sex in that way, other than age appropriate birds and the bees talk. Like, so to be exposed to sexual things, perverted sexual things, right? This is incestuous, right? To be exposed to that kind of stuff at 10 years old, that messes with your psyche. It messes with your head. You are forever changed, will never be the same. There's no undoing that, so to speak, right? And clearly the man didn't get any help. He didn't get any psychological help, any counseling, and intensive, extensive therapy, none of that, right? For Iyanla to be able to say he didn't even pass the preliminary questionnaire part that everybody has to complete that wants to be on this show. Like, for them, and I know, I hear Iyanla, I do truly believe that she is wanting to help people, but let's keep it real. This is also a business, right? So for them to turn down, that would have been a huge moment. Could you imagine the headlines or the advertisements for R. Kelly being on Iyanla Fix My Life? For them to turn it down, like, this stuff is like, oh, like, he probably needs, when I say intensive treatment, like, he probably needs to be, I don't want to say locked away, but kind of in a mental health institution facility where he's getting a therapy for being a perpetrator, a sexual predator. You know what I'm saying? I've worked with, the crazy thing, going back to social work, I'm sorry if I'm all over the place, but going back to my experience in the social work world, I not only worked with kids who were sexually abused and parents who were sexually abused, I also worked with kids and a parent who were the perpetrators. They were the sexual predators. And I'll be honest with y'all, like, one of the only parent that I worked with that I knew was a sexual predator, he was sleeping with his teenage daughter for years, which is a big reason why she came into foster care, trauma, mental health issues. She constantly had to be hospitalized. And I'll never forget the day that I had to have a one-on-one with him. Because normally when you're working with a family as a caseworker or a social worker, you have to maintain contacts with not only the kids and checking in on them in their foster homes and meeting with the foster parents, you're also having to work with the parents. You have to have contacts with them, you have to meet with them. Now, in this case, we were not trying to work towards her going back home to him. We were trying at all, for all intensive purposes, we were trying to make sure that there was no contact. There was even an order of protection put in place. But one of the crazy things about abuse, and even when it's at the hands of your own family member, this was her dad doing this to her, she was still drawn and would still run away and try to go to her father, knowing what was going to happen, right? Clearly he was sick, clearly he needed help, and I'll never forget the day that I had my first encounter, my first and only encounter with him, face to face. I felt so sick to my stomach. I felt so like, oh my goodness. And of course he denied everything to me, but at the same time, he's like looking at me in an inappropriate way, trying to like undress me with his eyes. And the vibes were just all my intuition, my guttural instincts. I was like, I've got to get out of this room with this man. We were in my old job. We were in our office in one of the interview rooms. And I was just like, never in my life had I experienced that. And I've worked with some tough parents. When I say tough parents, I've worked with some challenging people in my day, right? In my social work time or my time in that field. But never in my life had I ever felt to my stomach sick and disgusted. You know, and so I also worked with a child who was sexually abused, and then in turn was sexually abusing his sister and other family members that were in that particular home. And so sexual abuse, this stuff runs deep, y'all. Any form of abuse, but I know sexual abuse, it's wow, it's something. And I don't know that everybody will understand how, like, that's a whole other dimension in and of itself. And unfortunately, there are a lot of times where, you know, people get abused, right? And end up becoming the abuser. So almost like that whole generational curse thing, right? The sins of the mother or the sins of the father or the brother or the sister, whoever, end up just repeating those toxic, unhealthy, abusive behaviors. And so going back to R. Kelly, being abused, being sexually abused at that, exposed to this world of sex, is like opening Pandora's box. I'm a firm believer Pandora's box should forever be shut and stay shut. It's something, it triggers something, right? You know, and maybe for his personality, I know in the docuseries they were saying, you know, he grew up as a shy kid, quiet kid. He wasn't the R. Kelly that, or the, you know, the R. Kelly who we know, Robert, shy, quiet, insecure because he had difficulties with reading and writing and those kinds of things. And so the makeup of just his personality mixed in with whatever his home life was, the abuse. They didn't really mention anything about him having a father around or a father figure like that. They mentioned their mom, of course, and her, you know, them being in church and their mom being a church goer, you know what I'm saying? But interesting that there weren't really any mentions that I recall of with regards to a dad being in a home or a healthy male presence. You know, the older brother also seems like he has some issues. He clearly is incarcerated and made statements that were just disgusting and appalling as it pertains to, you know, his brother's inappropriate sexual relationships with underage girls, you know. I think he had made a statement like, what's the big deal? He likes younger women. That's just his preference. Like, no, there's something wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times what I learned in working with the families, whether it was the children, teenagers, or the parents who were sexually abused, because someone is robbing you of your own rights to your body and robbing you of your own right to your own will, so to speak, taking something from you without your permission, you feel a lack of control, right? And so it's easy for people who have been abused to want to always be in control and have control because that was taken from them, right? And so going back to R. Kelly, he's being abused sexually by his sister and God knows whoever else, right? It's this lack of control, you know? So it makes sense when they were saying he was very controlling. When I watched the interview with his younger brother who was really speaking to the abuse, and when he was kind of graphically talking about it, he mentioned, you know, a lot of what the sister would say. It seemed like even during the abuse, the sister was controlling, do this, do that kind of stuff. And then watching the docuseries, hearing, you know, a lot of the women, you know, the girls saying, you know, R. Kelly would make them do this, and it was like they were groomed, you know, they had to learn how he liked to be pleased sexually, and he was always like that domineering force, you know. R. Kelly's brother stated that a lot of times the abuse would happen when it was 3 boys and the sister. So their older brother was the oldest of the siblings, then came the sister, then came R. Kelly, then came the younger brother. And so he was saying that, you know, there were days, you know, after school, they want to go outside naturally, right? You want to go outside and play or just have a little bit of free time after school. And the sister would always send one of them to go with the older brother to go outside for a while, and she'd stay in the house with the other one. So like he said that to say that it was always where they were isolated. It was like, no, you can't go outside, you have to stay in the house. So some days it was R. Kelly that had to stay behind and he was able to go out and play with the older brother. Other days it was where he had to stay behind and R. Kelly could go out and play with the older brother. And so that's when he said the abuse was happening, for him at least, you know, of course, it was when it was just her and one of them. And so that whole thing of you can't go outside, you have to stay inside, R. Kelly kind of holding these women hostage, you know what I'm saying? Where they have to ask to use the bathroom, ask to eat food, ask to do everything, you know, privileges that should never be taken away from them are being taken away from them, like craziness. So it seemed like he was mirroring a lot of what his sister would do with him when he was a child. And so I think in these instances, it's almost like maybe for him and his personality, sex became this sense of power, you know, especially when he got put on and was like a star, you know, like it became like the fame, the money, the you know, sex, all that stuff was power and control, right? And on top of that, you know, wanting to deal with younger girls. Why? And even some of the appropriate age women he was dealing with, they all had one thing in common, which was their mindset, insecurity, low self-worth, where he was able to spot them out a mile away, the ones who he could control. That's how most abusers get down. They can peg you from a mile away. I used to always say to my husband, I said, a controlling man would never be attracted to someone like me, right? If anything, I would repulse them. Because when you know your worth, when you are firm in who you are, you love who you are, you're not going to allow people to just treat you any old kind of way. So they wouldn't even be, you know, attracted to someone that has their own mind, to someone who knows who they are, who's, you know, is connected with family. Like, let me not say that because all those girls had family. But like, they're going to be with someone that they can manipulate. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why I always feel like it's so important for us to know and understand and see who we attract, who we're attracted to, but also who we are attracting to us. Because there are a lot of people that could peg you a mile away. They could smell it a mile away. Like in R. Kelly, he was picking young girls for that purpose. And even, like I said, the age-appropriate women he was dealing with, he was picking women who were naive, who were probably had low self-esteem, you know, like who he knew he could control and manipulate. Because let's keep it real. Like the way the girl, what was her name? Dominique was her name? I don't remember. But like when her mom went out to Cali, she was in California, and was able to get her daughter from the hotel. It didn't seem like she had to go through all of this hemming and hawing and scheming to run away or to get from under that craziness. So it's the mind control, which brings me to the industry. I know I'm jumping around, try to follow me, y'all. The industry, a lot of that stuff is built on the foundation of mind control to the masses. Mind control, getting all of us locked in to be plugged in to whatever it is they're trying to filter to us so that we can buy and support and do all these things, right? For those who like really made it into the business, like they're famous, they're world known, like they're icons, they're stars, whatever you want to say, all of that stuff comes with a price, baby. It comes with a price. It's funny how my husband often says, everybody has a price, love, you know, and I'm like, no, but I get it. Everybody, we all, depending on how much money someone would be willing to give us, I guarantee you, there's a high chance that most of us, all of us for that matter, might go against our moral compass with certain things, might kind of slip a couple of values to the side. I'm like, you'd be surprised. You would be surprised. The devil is tricky. The devil is nothing to be played with either. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why knowing Jesus and having him in your life, we need that. We need, in my belief system, Jesus Christ, God, to combat the evils of this world, which include the devil. The devil has a hold on a lot of people. I believe the devil has a serious hold and has had a serious hold on R. Kelly and many others. Going back to the industry. First of all, for R. Kelly to get away for so long with all of what he has been doing, this was not a one-man operation. This was like a sex ring, right? He had a team of people helping him, looking the other way for their own financial gain, being yes men, yes women, whatever. But there were so many people who are responsible as well. The industry is just as responsible, if you ask me. Looking the other way, probably even encouraging this kind of stuff. You know, I always say I'm not gonna go but so deep on the Hollywood and the evils of Hollywood and the entertainment business stuff, because they will shut you down out here, y'all. But what I will say is, like, the industry is part to blame as well. The industry is part to blame as well. And, you know, the access that this man had, the money, he was able to pay so many people off, so many of these young girls' families off. The parents, all of them, they're in question to me as well too. Because at some point, knowing all the buzzes that have been around, I don't care if it was just a rumor and not true. If I hear that there is anybody and their name is correlated in the same sentence with messing with young girls or potential statutory rape type stuff, no, my child is not going to be around you. Nope, nope, nope. I believe in her talent enough to know that there will be another opportunity. What's for her is for her. This ain't for her. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that a lot of even parents were looking at some dollar signs, y'all. You know, and well, he did win the trial, and you know, he was vindicated, and you know, like, come on. Like, I'm sorry. A lot of people, I feel, in this situation, attached to these young girls who R. Kelly was messing with, dealing with, having sexual relationships with, I feel like I get it. When you're a preteen and when you're a teenager, you cannot necessarily control everything that your child does. I get it. When I was a teenager and I came from a good family, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't out here in these streets at times. You know, I'd be lying, you know. And my parents, you know, couldn't control everything that I did. They probably didn't know the half of certain things. But I remember them always saying, listen, you have to answer to God. Like, we're not going to be able to know everything. We're not going to be able to control everything you do. But you know who will know everything, and who at the end of the day controls it all. That's who you have to be worried about answering to, you know? And so I get it. These parents couldn't necessarily control every aspect of what their daughters were doing. However, some of it seemed like they were just a little too willing to allow their daughters to work with this man, or make it easy for their daughters to work with this man. But nonetheless, R. Kelly is absolutely to blame. He is not being exonerated. I'm not exonerating him. He is sick and needs help. And, you know, it's just crazy. Bill Cosby, another person who is a staple in the entertainment business, right? Was known for all things great and amazing and positive, and then all these stories have come out these last few years. And another person, another celebrity who a lot of us had a difficult time with separating who we knew him to be and his character from who he is, right? And so for me, it's just a reminder, and yet again, someone else who's in the entertainment world. I don't know if y'all are seeing this trend. Harvey Weinstein's, all these people, they're part of the they're part of an elite world. And I'm just saying, y'all, we gotta keep our eyes wide open. You know, it's a lot of this craziness is going on right in front of our faces. I even always share with my girlfriends, the ones, you know, especially the ones who want to break into the industry. Be very careful. Even with all of my building, I'm like, Chanel, there will be a day, you know, where you will finally get your brand off the ground to where you want it to be. There will be that day when you're presented with opportunities that may seem like everything you want, right? Don't sell out. Don't sell your soul. It's not worth it in the end. And so I try to remind myself of this all the time, because that world is very real, y'all. Just as much as God is real and all things heavenly, all things angelic, the devil is real, and all things evil is real too. And I'm telling y'all, the way the world is going, we see everything happening with the government shutdowns, who's in office right now. Like, this is all of this. I'm hoping y'all are connecting the dots. I often say the world is only destined to get worse, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Look at all these celebrities, the Whitney Houstons, the Michael Jacksons, the Gerald Leverts. Like, look at all of these celebrities and their stories, right? All these celebrities and their deaths. This stuff is not all just haphazard, y'all. I'm just saying. But anyway, let me get up off try to shut me down. Let me get up off all of these topics. So for me, I didn't jump on social media like many. You know, when I was watching the docuseries, I was trying to, and I'm still putting pieces of it all together. So you have the childhood stuff. I always feel like the people who are exceptionally talented, who actually make it to that level of stardom, I don't care what anybody says, I feel like they went through a lot. I feel like they had questionable childhoods, faced abuse of different things, neglect. Like, their stories are like real hardcore, crazy stories, which is probably what gave them the hunger, the drive to make it to that level. There are many talented people in the world, y'all. Many talented people in the world that never make it. Never make it on that level. It's only, if y'all notice, it's not many that make it to that level. It's not many who become these huge stars who are worth absurd amount of money. Absurd amount of money, or obscene amount of money, whatever. You get what I'm saying? You know? And so the genius level talented ones, I always feel like, are the ones who are not always well mentally, emotionally, all that kind of stuff. They're able to channel this amazing art because I think it comes from such a hurtful, broken, lost, and dark place. And so we have the childhood stuff with R. Kelly, the abuse early on. I think when he's like 19, 20, he hits it big. And then from there, you know, you got the money, you got the fame, everything's at your access. You got a bunch of people who just around you who just tell you what you want to hear. And it goes from there. The sickness, all of the effects of the sexual abuse don't go away because you're famous, right? That stuff still stays there. If it goes untreated, it remains and only gets worse as you get older. And so I think it's a combination of him having this sadistic addiction when it comes to sex with younger females, women, girls. I think it's that control thing because like I said before, when you're abused in any way, it's a loss of control that you should naturally be able to have. So you're being robbed, you're being violated. So for many, you want to control your environment, you want to control everyone who's within your environment. I also believe that he has a bitterness, animosity, resentment towards women because of what his sister did, right? And so you mix all of that up with the fame and the fortune and the access to everything else, that is a recipe for disaster, for sure, you know? And the crazy thing is his younger brother was saying in a recent interview that, you know, after all the abuse and all of that, like when Robert became R. Kelly, like he said his sister, even though she was a church-going woman, she would be front row with all the church people at his shows, that he has donated a lot of money to the church he was going to. He bought her a house. Like they moved on like a normal brother-sister relationship, like ain't nothing happened. Whereas the younger brother, you know, he had been estranged from his sister for years. He said when his son had gotten shot, it was on the news and everything. The sister called the hospital, I guess back in Chicago, and he, you know, answered. And when he used that as an opportunity to kind of say, you know what, I forgive you for what you did to me, and this, that, and the third. She acted like she didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Sickness, sick. And in my mind, someone must have sexually abused her for her to turn around and do that to her brothers. Like, this must have been some cycle going on. And you know, as many have been saying in a lot of interviews, Iyanla said this, Joe Budden said this, many others have said, especially as people of color, you're taught from young, you don't talk about nothing that's been going on in your household. You don't tell anybody about anything that's happening at home. You don't talk about your business, none of that. And so a lot of kids probably were being abused and mistreated, but followed that rule, like you don't tell. You don't never tell what happens in the house. You don't ever report what's really happening. You know what I'm saying? And that I get, you know, I get it in the sense of don't go out here just talking all our business. That's not what you do. But I think that the way that was taught in many families, it was to the point where children are being abused, children are hurting, and they're being taught not to tell. Even kids I worked with in social work, in the social work field, they would not snitch, a lot of them. A lot of them, I know we didn't even know the half of probably what went down before they were removed from their family's care. You know what I'm saying? Like, so a lot of kids held fast to that, like, you don't ever tell, you don't tell, you can't tell kind of thing, you know? And so I'm pretty sure R. Kelly grew up with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I hope that this man gets help. Whether they lock him up and throw him under the jail, I'm still hoping that he gets help, that he's mandated to do some type of mental health intensive treatment, you know what I'm saying, where he's in a facility for some time. Well, maybe they'll even give him an option, if it comes to it, for him to be locked up, but more so in a mental health facility. I would hope that this man gets help before it's time for him to meet his maker, you know? Like, that's crazy. That's sickness. And as much as I was a fan of R. Kelly, like I said, about a year ago, I was like, you know what, Chanel, no more. I stopped going to his concerts, not paying and supporting to go out to the shows. I stopped like buying music and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's crazy. And I mean, I feel like this is just going to continue to go on and go on and go on and go on within the entertainment business, y'all. We're going to continue to hear about stories of our favorite artists and people we looked up to and respected, musical geniuses, actors, actresses. It's going to continue more and more reports. And you know what really pissed me off? That half of the people, most of the people who were in the docuseries, aside from the psychologists and clinicians who were giving their professional feedback, like Touré, it ended up coming out that he was being sexually inappropriate with someone he was working with, or a makeup artist, very sexually inappropriate with the things he was saying to her. Charlemagne the God, and I love Charlemagne, but Charlemagne, there was an allegation put out there that he was dealing with recently as well, that back in the day in Monk, South Carolina, there was a young lady, they were all at some party, and I think she ended up being raped or something happened, and his name was attached to it. Don't know more or less, but still, like, it's like, so even the very people who are in the docuseries, even they have things in their past that are around the realm of sexual inappropriateness, or allegations about them, regarding them, about that kind of stuff. Like, the irony of it all, you know what I'm saying? And then for sure, all of the people that were on his payroll, like security guard and the background singers and all these people, they knew good and damn well what was going on and looked the other way, like, it's crazy. It is so crazy. All I can say is the world we live in, y'all, like I said, it's only going to get worse, and we got to try to make sure we can see the forest from the trees out here. Let's not get all caught up in the matrix, y'all, To me, it's the simple things that could catch us up in the matrix, get us all caught up in the matrix. So this week, everybody's putting up, a picture of how they looked. They're posting on their social medias pictures of how they looked 10 years ago till now, kind of to see how well you've aged. And what always turns me off about these kinds of things, and no shade, no judgment to anybody who decided to post and be a part of that. That's your right. Do you. But for me, I didn't feel the need to jump on that and like, let me post, because I feel like it's just another way for everybody to get caught up in the matrix, right? And for me, that kind of stuff seems blatant. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I'm not caught up in the matrix with other things, because I'm pretty sure I am. None of us are above. That's how crafty the devil is, which is why it is imperative for those that believe that we keep Jesus and that alignment with Jesus where it needs to be. And I'm guilty of definitely not being on my game with that the way that I should be, because I feel like between that relationship and cultivating that and being in our word and reading all the time, that is what's going to armor us up for all this craziness. That's what's going to sharpen our eyes when it comes to seeing through a lot of the matrix, you know what I'm saying? But for me, I always read deeper into things. So it's not just about, oh, I want to be down, and yeah, look, 10 years ago, look at me, I haven't aged. It's cool, but it's just another ploy to get us all caught up in the matrix, y'all. While we're all being dumbed down with all this social media stuff, Trump is doing some craziness, other things are happening behind the scenes, the devil is busy and working. Like, I'm for real when I say that. And y'all know I am not the preachy, churchy type people, but the devil is busy, y'all. Like, so for me, I was just like, nah, I'm good. And I actually kind of, after maybe seeing the 5th person that I was connected to on social media do it, I was kind of over it. And most of my timeline, most of the people I'm connected with have done it, and my timeline's been flooded with it. But like stuff like that, for me, it's just, like I said, I just always read just a little bit deeper. Maybe I'm paranoid, call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever. But I feel like it's the matrix, y'all. Be careful. And just also us not always wanting to feel the need to like bandwagon everything that happens on social media. Like sometimes it's like, which is another reason why I waited. Like people were like commenting on the Surviving R. Kelly. I could tell that they're watching it and then on commercial breaks posting, and I get it. But I was like, no, I gotta let this, like, I have to process this. Let me let this simmer and boil, almost like when you're cooking and you want everything to come together. Let me hear from other people who I respect their perspectives and opinions. Let me dig deeper in my entertainment world and the evils and the dark side of that. Like, let me, you know what I'm saying? And so another question that I had this is probably for the industry, why now? Y'all knew what R. Kelly was doing forever and a day. Why now? What did he not do that he was supposed to do Or what did he do that he wasn't supposed to do that he's on the chopping block now? That was my $1 million question. Even my mother, she's like texting me and we're talking the whole time, you know, about this whole thing and watching it. And I'm like, we're both like, why now? Like, why now? Because clearly he was able to get off and be, what's the word I'm looking for? The legal term, it slips my mind. But he was in some ways like exonerated for all of that. You know what I'm saying? Legally, right? Which meant to me in some way the industry was behind that, because the elite, the industry, like they're powerful. They were behind all of that. So he was able to get off scot-free, keep it pushing in life for the most part, come out with the Chocolate Factory, make all these hits, Step in the Name of Love, all these songs that everybody knows and loves, right? He was good. So that tells me that there was something that had to have been done or not done as to why he's on the chopping block now for all these things that the industry was aware of from years ago, from the 90s, you know? So for me, it was looking at it in a lot of different angles and trying to connect the dots. But a lot of it also, like I said, trauma, abuse, neglect, anything that any of us have faced. This is why I always sound like a broken record when I say that we have to like do the work, you know what I'm saying? Because if we're not careful, depending on our backgrounds, and I don't care what anybody says, I always say it starts from childhood, depending on the childhoods we've had, if we're not careful, we can become sick. For sure. And I'll probably be on my deathbed saying this, but this is why it is so important for all of us, and I am included. It doesn't matter that I had an amazing childhood. I have issues like the next person does. We all have our own personal issues that we still have to work on. Thankfully, because I had a healthy childhood, you know, I'm able to combat and deal with things in a healthy way and accordingly, and you know, won't find myself making choices that are gonna land me in crazy situations, right? But if we're not careful, for those of us that have gone through a lot, that have been abused, that have been neglected, that have not been treated right, that have been violated, like if we don't get the help that we need, we can become sick. And being sick there's so many different outcomes that stem from that. You know what I'm saying? R. Kelly, the man's a monster. Like I hate to kind of put it like that, but it is like he's very sick and has affected negatively a lot of people's lives, right? I feel for all those young girls and the treatment that they faced, the things they were exposed to. I'm not even going to get into other things that I heard allegedly that he was having these girls do. Things that just speak to pure evil. So I feel like it's the mental health stuff. It's the probably sold his soul evil stuff. It's the fame, money, fortune stuff. It's all of that. Like, all of that combined is a recipe for disaster. And just let it be words of encouragement for us, you know, to continue to work on ourselves, to really take a look in the mirror to see, oh, I gotta fix that. That's not a healthy behavior. This is not a great pattern of behavior. This is concerning behavior. Maybe I do need to talk to somebody about this particular behavior, you know what I'm saying, or mindset, or diagnosis, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, that is so important to be able to kind of figure that out. Or even if we can't figure that out and we need help in figuring things out, then let's get the help in figuring things out. Whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, having anxiety, whether it's bipolar disorder, whether it's borderline personality disorder, you know, whatever it is. There's so many different things, you know, that one can face. You know, let's get the help. I know depression is like running rampant out here, y'all. You know, I know more people than not who probably are legit clinically depressed, but refuse to get intervention, refuse to even try to maybe even do research to see a therapist or to find one, or like, it's real. And then people who have a hard time getting about the bed. Depression is real, you know. Once again, working in social work field, I worked in a particular department for 7 years that geared towards children who had mental health needs, emotional imbalances, and all that kind of stuff. I had to work with a lot of psychologists, a lot of psychiatrists, maybe not a lot of psychiatrists, but I worked with a few psychiatrists and a lot of psychologists in my time. And, you know, just hearing and learning and having to speak about certain cases and, you know, with them and bouncing things off of them and getting feedback from them. Like, depression is dangerous and real. And so, I mean, dangerous meaning if it continues to go untreated. And so let this just be a reminder to all of us, like, the importance of having healthy mentals, having healthy mental health, emotional health, and all those things. Call me crazy, like I said, call me a broken record, but I don't care what anybody says, like, that shit is important. Like, uber important. And like I said, more people in the world have been abused, unfortunately, and have gone through some real tough craziness. And if it just continues to go unaddressed, who's telling what can happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, who's telling? Robert Kelly was a child who was a blank slate, who unfortunately went through what he went through, which he needs Jesus, is all I can say. Jesus therapy, intensive therapy, but like, he was a child, a blank slate. We're all born blank slates, right? It's the people in our lives when we're young, during our formative years, you're an infant, into when you're like a child. They're the ones that kind of make or break certain things. Not to say once we become of appropriate age, we can't try to fix our lives and change certain things with God's help. But in the beginning, when we're first born, we're all complete blank slates. And so our caregivers, parents, however you want to refer to them, can make or break our development. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's what happened with R. Kelly, unfortunately. You know, his mom had to work. She left him with the sister. And to me, there's still holes in this story, holes all through this story. Something clearly had to probably have happened to the sister for her to be exposed to such things, to then expose her younger brothers, right? And to abuse them in that way. And this went on for years. I think the younger brother was saying that she was sexually abusing him for at least like 3 years. Like, craziness, you know? We gotta start speaking to the young people in our lives. I don't have children yet, but I definitely tell my niece and nephews, and I will definitely be telling my godchildren, like I'm sure their parents tell them as well. You always let an adult in your life who you trust know if somebody does something to you they shouldn't be doing to you. If somebody is violating you, if they're touching you in places they shouldn't be touching you, if they're saying things to you that they shouldn't be saying to you, you let the adults in your life know. You don't keep secrets, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's continue to let the children and young people in our lives know that as well. And let's always work to have a gauge of where we are and how healthy we are mentally and emotionally, y'all. If we do have some traumas from our childhood, or just different things that even happen to us, even if we were, you know, there are adults that get raped and things that happen, unfortunately. Like, whatever trauma we might have faced, let's try to deal with that. Like, I'll never forget, I got into a bad car accident, I would say 8 years ago, to the point where I stopped driving for a long time. I was working, transporting one of my clients to an appointment, got into a car accident. A huge Mack truck like smacked us. We were in a Toyota Sienna minivan, smacked us to the other side of the highway. If you saw the way that van was totaled, there's no reason why myself and my client were able to walk out and be alive. That was only God himself. And his angels that he sent to protect us, right, and camp around that car, because that car was totaled. And I know that I had post-traumatic stress disorder from that accident. It was to the point where I was the worst passenger anybody would ever want to drive with. My husband, who was my boyfriend then, he hated driving with me. My family hated driving with me. My friends for sure hated when I was a passenger in their car. I was a mess. And it got to a point where I was like, damn, I may need to like talk to a therapist or see somebody about this, because I didn't want to drive. I was having like, if I saw a cone in the road, anything that triggered the accident that I had, like, it was horrible. I was a horrible person to have in the car with you, to the point where my fear and how I channeled my fear almost would get the person driving in a car accident. Like, that's how terrified and like, oh my goodness, you did it. Like, it was bad. And I was like this close to going to see a therapist about it, because I was like, there's clearly, the trauma is real. And when I used to train foster parents, I used to always use it as an example about how real trauma is. And that's just being in a car accident. Car accidents could be a scary thing, y'all. Like, when they're like I said, imagine a Mack truck smacking your car from one side of the highway to the other, right? So I can only imagine the trauma of like sexual abuse, physical abuse, like those kinds of things, like that's real. That is real, y'all. So I'm like, first of all, therapy, we all could benefit from it. Every now and then till this day, I'm still like, maybe at this stage in my life, I should start seeing a therapist just to kind of like make sure I'm on track with certain things, or to see if there are any areas in my life that I have blind spots in, I don't see clearly, or I don't see at all. If there's anything that I do need to address, like, I feel like we all can benefit from therapy. Like, you don't have to necessarily be sick to benefit from therapy, but if you are sick, oh, for sure, like, therapy and amongst other interventions that are recommended should be considered. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm so glad that even when I was watching Joe Budden's podcast yesterday, even he spoke to it. I love that he's real about it. He was like, yo, I was a mental case for like years, 10, 15 years. You know what I'm saying? He said, I'm just now at a place in my life where I've been able to grow, and I've gone through the therapy, and I've gone through certain things that have gotten me to a point where now I can live a balanced and healthy life. But I had to do the work. Like, I love the fact that he's very transparent about that. And so, yes, what R. Kelly did is horrible, it's evil, and he's gonna have to be prepared for the consequences that come from that. I also wanted to shed light on, but see, when trauma and abuse and things of this nature go unaddressed, this is what can happen. When you keep people around you who are only saying to you what you want to hear, they're not getting you the help that you need, they're not giving you that tough love, you can find yourself in these crazy situations. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't care. I'll be that annoying friend. I'm pretty sure some of my friends come on here and they be like, oh, we don't want to hear what she got to say. Or in real time life when we're together, they may be like, oh, we don't want to hear what she got to say. But I'm going to always be that friend and family member who will be straight up, honest, loving, as non-judgmental as can be, and tell you the truth. Like, yo, I think you should. I had I call him a brother from another. And I used to tell him out of love, like, yo, I really think, and I'm saying this from my heart, I really feel like you need to get help. You need to speak to somebody. I know you feel comfortable talking to me about certain things, but I'm not a psychologist. Like, I really believe you should seek help. Like, there have been times in my life where I had to have that kind of like real talk with someone that I care about. You know what I'm saying? For me, I don't care how annoying it is. I want to make sure that even the people I have in my life are going to be straight up and real with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, sis, I think Shay, you may need to like get help. You know what I'm saying? Like, be real with me. Don't just like see me about to get into a bad situation, a bad crash, so to speak, collision, and you were never gonna try to like help me to kind of like divert me from that. You know what I'm saying? Point me in the right direction of where I can get help. Like, then what's the point of being friends? What's the point of being around one another and doing life with one another if we're really not going to be honest? You know what I'm saying? Shame on all those people who are and who were in R. Kelly's life that were not honest with that man, that continued to go out vetting for these young girls in high schools, in the mall, knowing that shit was wrong and still being like, but I need my paycheck though. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? Nah. I'd be like, friend, I love you, but I cannot attach myself to this. I'm out. Like, no. So it's important for us to have people around us that are not going to just tell us what we want to hear and blow smoke up our asses, but that are going to be honest with us, that are going to tell us the truth even when we don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to kind of attack this from a different angle, and just shed light on some other things. You know what I'm saying? Like, more so focus on the mental health component. Like, it's real. Like, we all constantly, I feel, need to check in and make sure that we're operating in a healthy manner. And if we question that, or if we're not sure, then let's go and perhaps do the research, get a therapist, and like go from there. You know what I'm saying? Like, get a life coach, whatever works, and go from there. I feel like we could research everything else in life, right? I know I'm a research queen. I'll research for hours, right? But at the end of the day, what's the point if we're not gonna just apply it, if we're only gonna apply it to the things that we want, or the things, but not really apply it where it matters and where it counts. You know what I'm saying? So I'll forever speak up about mental health. Like I said, I worked too long with kids, teenagers, parents, families who have had serious mental health issues to not speak up about it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, we all could benefit sometimes from a great touch base with a therapist, or, you know what I'm saying, a spiritual leader or whatever. And sometimes even for the church folks, sometimes we need a straight therapist. Like, it could be a Christian therapist, but sometimes we need like a legit therapist. You know what I'm saying? I believe that God gave man and women the ability to navigate the psyche and to figure it out enough to be able to thrive and to live healthy lives for a reason, and so let's take advantage of that. If we need it, let's try to go get the help that we need. Sometimes talking to someone, you never know how therapeutic that could be. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's hard to connect the dots in our own lives. And sometimes it's okay to have a little help from an outside party that's completely neutral and impartial to help us to connect the dots with certain areas in our lives. Sometimes things happen in our childhood that we could block out and not even fully remember. But for some reason, that thing that we're not really clear on could be triggered in certain situations and we don't know why. Maybe that's why we get angry and have a hard time with our frustration tolerance for certain things, or maybe that's why we easily become depressed and we kind of don't understand why, or maybe there is a chemical imbalance that causes our depression, or maybe our emotions are like a swinging pendulum, right? And there's something there that needs to be checked out. Like, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? It is okay. But I think what's not okay is to know that something is not right with us mentally or emotionally, and to continue to live that way without trying to get any help. But anyway, it's been about an hour and 5 minutes. I do not want to continue to ramble. Thank you for watching this vlog. Continue to rock out with your girl by going to ComplexSimplicity.com. And until next time.